Mr. Mayor, this is this isn't a council meeting, so could we hold the speakers to 30 seconds?
No, we have 3 minutes. And actually, it's 6 p.m., so we are going to gavel in the meeting. I have 6 by my iPhone.
Well, that's
Yes,
good
sir,
enough.
it is 6 p.m.
That's good enough. What the hell is going on?
I call the regular meeting of the Menifee City Council to order at time 6:00. And Madam Clerk, we have a closed session before us this evening. Do we have any public speakers?
Yes, Your Honor. I'll call them now. Chuck Reuter. Okay.
Can you hear me? Yes, sir. I'm here tonight because I'm very concerned about what I hear that's going on with our city. I want to take you back to the year 1990. This time of the year, too, 1990. A friend of mine came to me and said, Chuck, we're going to form a city. I said, wow. His name was Henry Wagner. And there were people on this SEDCO committee, such as Pete Peterson, Eve Hoover, and Darcy Kinsey. I'm amazed and she looked as good as she does. This is 24 years ago. But anyway, I want to get to the point. Henry, why do we want to have a city? Well, for one thing, we can have local control over things going on around here. Oh, maybe we can even get an animal shelter, because I was involved with the Sun City Friends of Animals back then. So far, nothing. And then we talked about other things, such as road repair. The main point was local control. That was important. We did not form a city for you guys to play power games with the city staff. That's what I see going on here. And you, Mr. Furman, I suggest that you recuse yourself from this decision-making involving the attorney, because it's personal for you, and it may involve the United States Department of Justice. I just got told that 2 days ago. I was telling a friend of mine what was going on here, and he said, whoa, the Department of Justice can come down on you guys. But most of all, you guys have been attacking our city staff over and over and over. And that has to stop. That's what we got a manager for. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Casson Klein.
Thank you. Thank you for taking my comments, Mr. Mayor, City Council. It feels like I've talked about this several times. What are we on? Our 4th city manager. We've been through 5th. My perception as, a developer, not a resident, but a developer that's pretty well engaged in Menifee, my perception of what this is about revolves around monthly billings that are too high and somewhat of a power struggle. I don't know whether that's true or not. What I want to speak to is I want to appeal to you and consider what a possible replacement of the city attorney does to development. The steps that we take back, every single project. And look, I'm not overly concerned with rooftops. Yeah, rooftops lead to commercial. We're in. We're all in. The Junction, Commerce Point, you gentlemen know, we're in, based on the rooftops that are here. We'd like to see more. We know they're coming. But every step of the way, we've been affected by it. Financially, my projects have been affected by it. And that affects your constituents. The longer it takes our projects to get out of the ground, the longer the improvements, the road improvements, Scott and Hahn, the Scott Road interchange, the development impact fees, TUMF, all of these things. So, unless there's some cause that I'm not aware of, and maybe there is, I don't know. I'm only talking about my perception and trying to communicate to you what happens each and every time a department head gets replaced. And like I said, we've been through, when I say we, me and my clients have been through 4 or 5 city managers, 3 engineers. I'm counting George Wentz as the first city engineer. We're on our 3rd engineer. We're on our 2nd planning director. We've been through a host of planners. We've got a lot of things still coming forward that need review by this city attorney on Commerce Point. We've been dealing with Army Corps of Engineers and their legal counsel for years over one final thing to get us out of the ground. Now if we have a change with Ms. Biggs and her firm, where's that going to put us? For that potential new city attorney to re-review those documents. And your city manager can tell you, I mean, he has felt I'll wrap. He has felt my frustration. I haven't brought that here. I think some of my personal conversations with a few of you individually, you've felt that. But I just appeal to you to please make this about business and consider what a change does. It has a cascade effect. Thank you, and I apologize for going over.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mike Mudd.
Thank you for hearing me, Council. The people of Menifee, otherwise known as the local government, need to have 2 of our council members recuse themselves from this vote to remove our current city attorney, Julie Biggs. Our mayor, Scott Mann, vote is compromised due to an inappropriate funds donated to his campaign by Miss Biggs' husband. You, sir, need to recuse yourself from this vote, just as you did when the votes were cast to bring on a new attorney, Miss Biggs. The policy of our current law firm, Alshire and Winder, is that there should be no collusion of fundraising by their attorneys to or for any sitting council member, yet this has occurred. A substantial amount of money was given to our mayor, Scott Mann, by the Biggs family. Therefore, your vote will be unduly influenced. Now, we look to the other council member, Tom Furman. Julie Biggs launched legal action against Furman and the Wooden Nickel Ranch. Tom Furman has an undue bias against Julie Biggs due to the actions taken by her in order to have Mr. Furman conform to the codes. Mr. Furman has been out of compliance for years. When we have a city councilman, Mr. Furman, telegraphing the world after a closed session meeting, I fired Biggs! I fired Biggs! It is a firm indicator that your vote will be compromised as well due to your bias against Julie Biggs. Both Tom Furman and Scott Mann's votes should be absent from this vote as they are improper and could open the city up to another lawsuit. Miss Biggs has a history of suing cities that do not think carefully about how they show her the door. Right, Julie? Mr. Mayor, Mr. Tom Furman, you both have made poor choices regarding your own self-serving wants and needs, and you are hereby on notice. The voting people of this city's eyes are upon you. Choose wisely. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have other speakers?
No, sir, not for this item.
Very well. Then we will recess into closed session. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will re-adjourn from closed session and call the meeting to order at time 7:07. I have. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Councilmember August. Councilmember Furman. Here. Councilmember Denver. Here. Deputy Mayor Edgerton. Here. Mayor Mann.
Here.
Thank you.
Is Casey Crawford from Elevation Church here tonight? Hearing none, if you would please join me, ladies and gentlemen, please rise, and we will have a quick prayer. If you would join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, bless this proceeding this evening and all those who serve, both on staff and in the elected capacity, and also all those who are out in the audience tonight who come to exercise their constitutional right. Please remind them in their hearts that it's not about the individual, it's about the city. And we ask for your blessings on this city. We ask for your wisdom, and Heavenly Father, lead us. Holy Spirit, empower us for the rest of this meeting. In your name we pray. Amen. Councilmember Furman, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Every heart repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have some presentations this evening, but before we do those presentations, I have a report out of closed session. As a result of a request for proposal, long-standing request for proposal for the city attorney services in the city of Menifee, by a vote of 3-2, with Deputy Mayor Edgerton motioning and Council Member August seconding, and a vote of 3-2 with Mr. Denver and Mann voting no. A decision has been made to go in a different direction with our city attorney services in the next few months. And with that, Ms. Biggs, I would just like to say, and maybe the other council members would like to say, that we're very grateful for all of the things that you have done for this city and since you've been here. And there's going to be a long transition with the firm that comes in. That is Rutan and Tucker, with Mr. Jeff Melching as the city attorney appointed. And we'll leave it up to the staff to come back and recommend to us when that transition will take place. And in accordance with state law, in the wake of the City of Bell incident, the contract for city attorney services must be done in public. So that'll be re-agendized in the future. But we want to thank you for everything that you did to help us get to this point. There was a lot of things that you've done, cleaning up the municipal code, getting us through a lot of the contentious ordinances, the ones that had a lot of issues with them, the general plan and those types of things. And so from one member up here, thank you very much for your time in public service with the city of Menifee. We wish you the very, very best. And this is no reflection upon you or your firm. This is just a transition that the council desires to go in. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Well, Julie, I'll just add to what the mayor said, as you know, we had that agreement that you would come in as an interim attorney and then we'd go out for the RFP. I want to say during the period that you did serve as an interim attorney, I thought you did a good job for our council. I want to emphasize that any relationship that you had with me and all my dealings with you were extremely favorable. You were polite, you were appropriate, and you were responsive. And so for the work you've done, I want to go on record and say I'm really appreciative of it, and thank you.
Marvelous. With that being said, gentlemen, if you would join me up front, we have some presentations to make tonight. It's a government rope. Cost you double. We have several presentations this evening, 3 specifically, and the first that we would like to start off right out of the blocks is a presentation to a gentleman by the name of Edward Charles Hicks. Good evening, sir. Last time we presented this, I think I misspoke. I think I said centurion, and I want to be very direct. It's not centurion because we're talking about Romans, and and when I say centurions, we're talking about a mythical character. It's a centenarian is the proper term for someone who is 100 years old. So, gentlemen, I don't think we want to, unless you want to have somebody help you come up here. I think maybe do we want to do that, or shall we come up or come out there to you? All right, come on up, family. Yeah, come on up. And except for maybe somebody who wants to take a picture. and my son's old baseball coach sitting in the front. How you doing? That's your brother-in-law? Oh, I didn't know that. Fantastic. It's a small world, 3 degrees of separation. Well, let me go ahead and read this, sir. How are you tonight? You're doing all right. Okay, very good. This is a City of Menifee proclamation. Whereas Edward Charles Hicks was born on August 28, 1914 in Poughkeepsie, New York, and this year celebrated his 100th birthday. And Edward Hicks served as a civil engineer during World War II for the Army and served in Africa, Egypt, and England, and while in England met and married Mary Eileen Apperly in 1947, sailed to the United States on the Queen Mary, who I understand also, Mary was also an engineer, and they both later on worked for Hughes Aircraft, which is an interesting story. The couple raised 3 children while Edward worked as an engineer for Hughes Aircraft, Aerojet, Santa Fe Offshore Drilling, and Global Marine. And Edward Hicks was involved in such projects as the B-17 in World War II, to the Hughes Glomar Explorer, which raised a Russian nuclear submarine in the Pacific Ocean in 1974. And Edward now has 6 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren and has lived in Menifee since 1991 and now lives in the Sun City area of Menifee in Sun City Gardens. Therefore, the City Council of the City of Menifee proclaims, congratulations to you, Edward Charles Hicks, on the milestone of celebration of your 100th birthday, and we wish you, sir, all the very best in the years to come. Congratulations. Don't let this Davy guy make you do the Army thing. Would you like to say anything at all, sir? Or you want to pass for tonight? Okay. Well, I'm honored to meet you. Thank you so much for gracing our presence in the council chamber tonight. Thank you very much, sir. Congratulations. Thank you. For our next presentation, for those of you who don't know, coming up in the week of 17th of September is Constitution Week in the United States. And so I would like to bring up Pat. Come on up and join us up here. I believe we did this last year, yes? Yes. Well, come on up in between us with your Daughters of the American Revolution scarf and my little Sons of the American Revolution rosette on my lapel for tonight. Yeah. We're working on trying to get my wife and my daughters certified. It should be easier now that I am, but maybe I can ask for your help on that. Excellent. Well, let me go ahead and read this proclamation from the City of Menifee. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government and a republic dedicated to rule by law. And September 17, 2014 marks the 227th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it. And Public Law 915 guarantees the issuance of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through September 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Menifee proclaims the week of 17 September through the 23rd of September Constitution Week in the City of Menifee. Congratulations to you, and thank you for everything that you do. Well, actually, no, let me turn it back. I mean, you have the floor. I yield the balance of my time to the distinguished woman in the Dar scarf this evening.
Oh, my goodness. Wow, thank you. Well, like I say, what I was going to say is one thing is the Celebrating the Constitution was started many years ago by the Daughters of the American Revolution. And the aims of the celebration are to emphasize citizens' responsibilities for protecting and defending the Constitution, to inform the people that the Constitution is the basis for America's great heritage and the foundation for our way of life, and to encourage the study of the historical events which led to the framing of the Constitution in September 1787. And we want to thank you for sending this important message about the Constitution Week to the citizens of Menifee. And I would like to add that this Lucenio chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution was started right here 48 years ago in the core area of what was Sun City in 1966 with about 6 members. And we now have a membership of 92. Our main thrust of charitable activities is supporting veterans. We help the formerly homeless Riverside County vets at March Air Reserve Base, which is now called the Back to Work program. We try to supply whatever items they may need throughout the year, and we provide Christmas gift bags for them and to the vets at the Jerry Pettis Veterans Hospital at Loma Linda. A group of us placed American flags on the graves of veterans at the Riverside Veterans Cemetery on Memorial Day, and our goal is to place a flag on every grave out there. So on behalf of the Lucenio Chapter DAR, we thank you again for this proclamation.
Thank you very much, Pat. Congratulations. We have one more presentation tonight, and yeah. Bring one of those up, Greg. Just in case. Right in the middle. Hi, how are you?
Hey, young lady.
Here's a little chair for your head there, Elizabeth. Okay.
Well, we have it's an end of an era in the city of Menifee tonight, as we recognize the efforts of Elizabeth Marden and the Sun City Canine Adoption Organization in the Sun City area, part of Menifee. And what I'd like to do, Elizabeth, is I'm going to read this proclamation, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. August, and he's got a few things to say. Okay? A City of Menifee proclamation. In the 1990s, Elizabeth Marden, a retired aerospace engineer for Hughes Aircraft. What's the deal with Hughes Aircraft tonight? We have a lot of engineers here from Hughes. Hey, they created the sounds of freedom that fly above our skies. Began working with a group known as Sun City Friends of the Animals Incorporated, serving as president and adoptions chair. And that group was so successful that more animals were coming in than they had homes available for. And in 2002, Elizabeth purchased property and began the process of building a shelter with donations and assistance from friends and the community. And the location became Sun City Canine Adoption, providing shelter to animals in the Menifee Valley until a home could be found for the animals. And the shelter was a nonprofit organization and operated only on the support from the community. And Elizabeth enlisted the assistance of her friend Betty Raymond for fundraising, and the group began a tradition of garage sales, golf tournaments, and an annual barbecue to augment the funds for the shelter. And Sun City Canine has adopted out 125 to 150 dogs and approximately 60 cats and kittens each year. And now, therefore, the City Council of Menifee proclaims sincere thanks and appreciation to you, Elizabeth Marden, and Sun City Canine for your years of dedicated service to the community, to the community's animals, and thanks the many volunteers who helped there. Approved and adopted this 3rd day of September 2014. Congratulations to you. Now it's your turn.
Never done this before. I had to use both hands like this, so I had to put these glasses on because I wrote kind of small. Don't let me stand in front of you. Anyway, I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to add on to what you've already said. Okay, I just want to thank the mayor for allowing me to add on to what you've already said. At the beginning of each council meeting, the city gives a little time for presentations to recognize and honor groups and individuals for special achievements and contributions. This truly marks the richness and quality of a city and the people living in it. Tonight, it's my honor to say a few words for what I consider to be a five-star performance, both in contributions and achievements within the city of Menifee. Elizabeth Martin, an icon in the animal community in the city of Menifee. She's been a selfless, dedicated, tireless advocate and servant. Her organization, Sun City and Canine in Adoption, and the scores of volunteers that over the years have given thousands of hours of voluntary service, both at the shelter and within the community, working for one goal, helping animals in need and help. Tonight is kind of bittersweet for me, for we're not just paying tribute and giving honor to you, Elizabeth, for what has become, in my mind, an institution within the city of Menifee, but we're saying goodbye to it as well. Elizabeth, to me, you will always be remembered as the good and great shepherd for our abandoned, abused, lost, neglected, and unwanted animals in the city of Menifee, as well as the local area. I've known Elizabeth I'll share a little story with you. I've known Elizabeth for many, many, many years. I used to live in Casa Marietta, which is right across the street from where Sun City Canine Adoption is now on Marietta Road. We were gated, just like Casa Marietta is. People would, at nighttime, come over and throw their dogs over the fence. They'd leave them there, and they thought that some of the people in the community would take them in. Well, I started taking them in, but as soon as I got them in my house, I would call up Elizabeth at Sun City Canine Adoption. Come on over to my house. I have a dog. When she walked into my house, I would say, Elizabeth, we have to find a home for this dog. And true to form, she did. She found my home for the dog. And that happened over and over and over. So, because we were gated across the street, Sun City Canine is a gated community. So, that canine, whether the animals were thrown over your fence, or tied to the fence, or brought in from the streets and neighborhoods, or just turned over to you because someone didn't want or no longer could care for them, you and your great volunteers cared for them, you loved them, you nursed them, you nourished them, and with that single purpose in mind, to find them once again a loving family and a good home. You were their final and last chance, and you and your canine volunteers, with your inspiration, did succeed almost every time. We're almost through. Elizabeth, the city, the county before, and all the animal-loving people, from our hearts, we owe you and your great team of dedicated volunteers a great deal of thanks and gratitude. And may your purpose and all your work through others be continued so that someday rescue and adoptions may no longer be needed. We're going to miss you, and thank you very much for your service. And Pete, you want to come up here?
Hello. Okay. Okay, I'm going to have to read this. On behalf of all the volunteers and staff at Sun City Canine Adoptions, I wish to thank the City of Menifee for recognizing Elizabeth Martin for establishing Sun City Canine Adoptions. The dedication and work that has been done over the past 10 or 12 years has allowed us to rescue and find forever homes for well over 1,000 dogs and cats. Wish I could remember them all, but I can't. These volunteers have freely given them their time, labor, and money to help the shelter continuous work through direct labor or organizing garage sales, barbecues, and sponsoring our annual golf tournaments. Now the torch, so to speak, has been taken up by Mrs. Elizabeth White of Retriever and Friends of Southern California. Liz has 20 years experience of owning and operating her own non-kill shelter. She will lift what was started by K-9 to an even higher level. So as board president, let me say again, thank you to our city, Elizabeth Martin, and all of our volunteers and staff, past and present. Thank you very much.
Could all the volunteers that are here tonight please stand up? And I'm going to turn this over to Elizabeth. Would you like to say a few words? Would you like to say a few words to the people?
The only thing that
All right. Here's all your volunteers, some of the volunteers that you've worked with over the years that came to honor and contribute tonight. So, would you like? Would she like to say? You don't have to speak.
okay. Okay.
Okay. All right. She doesn't want to speak to you.
Okay.
She said. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Is Pamela Hall here? Pamela, would you come? I believe you have a brief presentation to make. Come on. Well, come on up. Pamela Hall.
I'm Pamela. I'm a former Menifee resident. Unfortunately, I don't live here anymore, but I wanted to drive down on behalf of Kim Goebel, who is a former director and a good friend of mine. And Kelly, her daughter, was supposed to come with me, but she ended up not being able to make it. So on my behalf and on Kim's behalf, we wanted to thank you for everything you've done.
Marvelous. Well, yeah, there's no other way to say it, but thank you so very much for everything that you've done for so many people in this valley and your dedication to that effort. God bless you and thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, one and all, and thank you for your words, Mr. August, and everybody who presented tonight. We have approval of the meeting minutes of August 20 and special meeting of August 23rd. Are there any modifications to those minutes? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. Madam Clerk, do we have any agenda modification tonight?
No, sir, only the changes you made in reordering presentations. Otherwise, it's as posted.
Thank you very kindly. The agenda is approved. Would you please call the first public commenter?
Yes, sir. Walt Mueller.
Hello, board and folks. This is a simple thing. I probably know the answer already. I'm a director for the Menifee Lakes Master Association, and at our last meeting, we had quite a discussion about the real estate signs that blossom on the weekends on Newport Road between Antelope and Menifee Road, to the point where people are quite upset with the forest of signs and so on and so forth. And the question came up, can we take them down? Can they take them down? And I'm pretty sure what the answer is, but it was a question that I was asked to put forward to the city council because we don't own the property between the sidewalk and the road and the curb, which is where they all are.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, could you update the public on where we're at maybe with our signage ordinance and our cooperation with the chamber on that issue?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, our sign ordinance was being reviewed by the Chamber of Commerce and local businesses. They have a review back to us, and it's slated to come back to Planning Commission and then to council in the near future. However, we do understand the annoyance of some on the signage for the homes that are being built in the local area, and typically the signs are put up on Friday and down by Sunday night. Obviously, currently, that is an issue with our sign ordinance, and we do have a code enforcement officer on the weekends. However, taking those down and having to put back up every weekend is kind of like chasing our tail. So we're trying to come up with some other options to not only make sure that the homes that are being built have an opportunity for people to get to them, but to limit the amount of signage in the public right-of-way.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Deputy Mayor?
Just wanted to add to that, if you're concerned about signs, this is election time. I think I can say something objective because fortunately for me, I'm not running. But there are certain constitutional rights that people have when they run for office. And some people get irritated with the candidates, but you're going to see a flurry of signs. And even when you knock on the door, somebody will say no solicitors under the Constitution. If you're knocking on the door because you're electioneering for somebody, that really is not considered a solicitation, but a constitutional right under the First Amendment. So get ready for a flurry of signs. But I'm sure that Mr. Johnson is going to have some remarks to say later on about the people if they leave their signs up more than 48 hours after the close of the election. That'll be different.
Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Katie Manier.
Well, tonight I'll give the council a break. At a recent meeting, one of our developers, Casson Klein, decided to make a comment that I was here flirting with the deputy. I want to make it perfectly clear to everybody. I'm not here to pick up men, and furthermore, my private life is none of his business. I volunteered for 15 years with the Sheriff's Department through Hoopa Valley. I have the utmost respect for what these officers do and their jobs. That's all. I am always respectful to all of them, including the deputy that works here. Mr. Klein's comments border on sexual harassment and intimidation. Could it be the city staff would want me intimidated by their favorite developer? At the last meeting, he thought I made a good case for more housing. My concerns here are for the health and welfare of the people. Every time the blades hit the ground, I'm tired of you being rude to me every time I speak. You're disrespectful.
Excuse me, please continue. What Mr. Edgerton and I do, just please continue your comments. You're wasting your time.
Every time the blades hit the ground, contaminants are put into the air that we all breathe, and that won't stop until every piece of land is built on, whether it's commercial or housing. Mr. Klein's newest project is on former Boris land, and we all know Mr. Boris dumped contaminants on that for years, and that's on the record. The health history of the Boris family should be a concern about disturbing the land and releasing toxins into the air for all of us to breathe, all for profit for the developers.
Thank you, Ms. Manier. Next speaker, please.
Rosemarie Elwright. And did you also want me to call Lois Burton?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Scott, council people, I want to take this opportunity to speak on behalf of what was the unincorporated area known as Sun City. When we became a part of Menifee, it achieved city status in October 2006. The city recognized Sun City's historical significance when it erected the monument designating Sun City as a community of Menifee. The Department of Transportation and Caltrans also have erected the signs establishing the location of Sun City. The Corps has begun a monumental task of sorting and cataloging over 50 years of its existence, and we are asking the city's support. I would like to introduce Lois Burton, the chairperson of this project, to explain what she's up against. Thank you, Lois.
Thank you. We discovered when we had our 50th anniversary that a lot of our materials and history has been moved around, has been placed in different places. And so at that time, many of us realized that we needed to save it and preserve it for future generations to see our history, because Sun City was developed as one of the leading senior communities, and it had a lot of publicity. There was a lot going on at the time in the area. And so all of that, we have a lot of photos that we have from the Sun City News. We have a lot of articles. We have an association that is over in Arizona, where the first one was started by the Del Webb Corporation, that we are being in contact with to coordinate some of the documents that they have. They said that they'd be willing to share. And so we are wanting to obtain some support, we hope financial support, for us to catalog the documents, to catalog everything that is there. We are photographing and preserving everything so that we can put the originals away so that they will be kept in archival state. And then we eventually would like to display it. The library has volunteered that they have a case that we can display some of the items there. We're hoping that maybe the Case and Acero Center would be willing to, do some displays for us. And so we would like to present that to the board and see if you would discuss some maybe possibly financial donations or, support in the future.
Thank you very much. Mr. Johnson, perhaps in a collaborative effort, maybe Mr. Lennox could maybe partner with, at least have a meeting and maybe bring in the Menifee Historical Society folks and maybe some of the Arts Council folks who display those types of works already, and maybe come up with a way to move it forward and work together.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Roxanne Roundtree.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council, and staff. My name is Roxanne Roundtree. I'm Senior Public Affairs Officer at Eastern Municipal Water District. And I'm not here tonight to talk to you about the drought. That's going to be another day. You can breathe a sigh of relief. I'm actually here to introduce to you my coworker, Donna Jacomet. Donna is also a Public Affairs Officer at Eastern Municipal Water District, and she will be your new liaison that's taking over the Menifee area. So I just wanted to bring her here tonight so I could introduce her formally to you. I appreciate the time that I got to work with you all and the relationships that we formed. I'm going to be actually focusing more on the Temecula and Marietta area. I'm still with EMWD, but I'll be shifting down that way. So I just wanted to introduce her this evening.
And I just would like to say I look forward to working with you and the community and getting to know how the city works. So just call on me when you need anything water related. Thank you.
Well, Roxanne, thank you very much for everything that you've done for us in your EMWD role, especially with the Quail Valley Environmental Coalition and those types of things. We hope that you carry that torch, and under your and Mr. Sullivan's leadership and Tom's and others who have served on that board, you helped elevate the priority of bringing sewer into Quail Valley. So thank you very much, and congratulations on your daughter graduating boot camp and becoming a U.S. Navy sailor.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker, please.
Mike Mudd.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council Member, and staff, thank you for hearing me. I'm going to basically just do something that I never do, which is apologize. I made a comment before closed statement, before closed session, regarding campaign contributions from the Julie Biggs family to the mayor. There was nothing improper about that contribution. I want to apologize to the mayor, Scott Mann, and to Julie Biggs. Thank you for taking the time to correct me, and again, I apologize. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mudd. Next speaker, please.
Pam Bishop.
Good evening. Coming here tonight, I noticed that we have a parking problem, to put it mildly. My thoughts were, do we own the property next door here that we could possibly use for additional parking when we have a large audience? Or would it be possible to have the roads around here striped so that there would be individual parking spots? Because when people are it's just open for them to come in, they leave a lot of room between their cars, and it takes up a lot more room. Just a thought to make it easier on the community when they come into any of the meetings that are here. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good thought. City Engineer, do you have any thoughts on that tonight, or would you like to defer to another day? All right, thank you. Next speaker, please.
And Pika? No, okay. And Mr. Yoders, is that true as well? Okay. And that will be all the speakers. We do have a speaker under consent agenda, Your Honor.
Very well. That brings us to council member updates and comments. Gentlemen, do we have anything to update the public on? Deputy Mayor?
We've had some special proclamations for some really worthy people here tonight, and especially in reference to the K-9 unit and all of the wonderful things they've done for dogs and cats. And our city, we've got a bunch of animal lovers up here, and so we've worked hard to try to work with the county, to work with Animal Friends of the Valley, and both of those organizations have been very helpful for our city. But I do really believe, in all fairness, with the realization that we're all animal lovers up here, if the dogs and cats in this city could be registered, and maybe in this election I would imagine some people will try to register some of them, but if all of the dogs and cats could be registered in this city and they had a vote for the council person that has absolutely gone heads above everybody up here in a great effort, giving his time, having yard sales, giving his money, and working tirelessly for the benefit of animals. It has been Councilman Greg August. And Greg, thank you.
A well-deserved applause, sir. Mr. Furman.
Thank you. Well, it's campaign season again, and campaign season's supposed to be fun. All right. I remember a political rally that was held here in Menifee, and there was food, entertainment, and hayride, and there was an elephant there, which was a special treat for a lot of people. Paul Zellenbach and Jeff Stone were there, and there was probably over 300 people at that rally, and it helped them both get elected. 2012, about the same scenario. We didn't have an elephant, but we had a rally for Scott Mann to help him get elected. Now, our mayor has sent out a very nice letter to everybody, recommended that everybody be ethical during this campaign season. But not everybody gets the memo. So I'm cautioning everyone to read all their information, okay? Do your homework. Call your candidate and talk to him. Email him. Get his comments, okay?
Or her.
And most of all, exercise your right to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Denver?
Mr. Mayor, there's lots of things, I don't know which ones you want to talk about. We've had numerous things going on here in our beautiful city. The Menifee Day at the Storm was Wednesday, August 25th. That was great fun. Lots and lots of people out there celebrating that day. We've opened several new businesses. Ulta, ULTA. I have no idea what they sell. It's something to do with women. I don't understand it. And also, after that, the Sun City Civic Association had a billiards room, a new billiards room that they dedicated, and we've had several others, but I'll let others speak to them.
So just adding on to that briefly, we also, well, Five Guys Burger opened, and maybe some of you have already frequented that establishment. We did the Jersey Mike's grand opening last night, and I know that Applebee's is opening, I think, this weekend, Saturday, for their soft opening. So, you know, it's just 3 of 19 some odd businesses that are coming that have been announced between retail establishments, restaurants, and grocery. So things are happening in Menifee, to be sure, taking advantage of what Menifee has to offer. All I want to add tonight is, if I've said this before, if you're inclined to write a letter, send an email, or call the governor's office, we need your help. As you know from the last meeting, that SB 69 and AB 1521 were approved unanimously by both chambers, the Assembly and the Senate, and those bills are on the governor's desk. That restores our VLF revenue to our city. $50 per capita. It means, you know, with 83,000 people and some change, that's just about $4.2 million annually, which would start coming to us in January 1, if the governor approves it. So we solicit your help. Please call the governor, send him an email, send him a fax, write him a letter, and see if we can't get him to sign the bill this time. With that being said, I believe that brings us to our consent calendar. And will you call the speaker on the consent calendar, please?
Grant Yoders.
Good evening, Grant Yoders, community of Sun City. My favorite part of the agenda, the warrant register. I've been silent on this item for the past few months, but since this looks to be a short meeting, why not take advantage of my 3 minutes of fame? Over the past several years, I have requested that the agenda include the lump sums of the 4 attachments to the warrant register so that the public will be aware of what the council is going to approve. My request continuously goes on deaf ears. Tonight, the City Council will approve approximately 75 items, plus 31 city credit card charges and the city payroll. For the record, the grand total was $683,654.16, not a penny of which will be challenged by the council. I will say that the fees for legal services this period was only $12,043. Must have been a slow month for the city attorney. Next, I want to address the city credit card charges. Our city council continues to charge the taxpayers for their dinners prior to every council meeting. Something's wrong with this picture. For the 2 June meetings, $141.80 from Los Primos and $149.98 from Panera Bread. I am sure there is a violation of the Brown Act here somewhere if you folks are assembling collectively in the back room for dinner. I'm sure you're not talking about World Affairs and the Lake Elsinore baseball team. Now let's look at the mayor's credit card charges. For the U.S. Conference of Mayors, expenditures dated 6/2/14 through 6/23/14, $1,850 for the conference registration fee, $141.89 for airline fees, $1,047.88 for lodging, $212.35 for rent-a-car, $55.80 for airport parking and rent-a-car fuel. Grand total, $3,307.99. That is a large sum of money to be spent by a ceremonial mayor. Of course, I'm sure Mr. Mann expounded on all of the wonderful things that he has accomplished for Menifee. But on the other hand, I wonder if you also told the folks that you have no power or authority and that you are only just one vote on the city council. For a person who whines about his pay going to be equal to the other council persons, you don't mind spending the city's money, especially when it could be used for additional city services. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yoders. Next do we have any other speakers on the consent calendar?
No, sir.
I'll entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
So approved.
We have a motion from Mr. August. Is there a second?
Second.
And Mr. Furman, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember August. Councilmember Furman.
Aye.
Councilmember Denver. Deputy Mayor Edgerton. And Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor?
I just wanted to point out, when we were talking about the warrant register, that there was one area there where we were filling potholes in roads, and doing deferred maintenance is extraordinarily expensive as opposed to maintaining roads. When you've got potholes and they're deteriorated like that, it's no reflection on our staff. That deterioration would have started a long time ago. In fact, I'm very impressed with Jonathan and our city manager and what they've done to bring our roads up to shape. But we still have a ways to go, and that's one of the challenges we have in this city as far as our infrastructure, and that's to maintain it, because it costs you X amount of dollars to maintain roads. But if you defer maintenance, you can put a figure in front of whatever that X is, and it is exponentially more for the taxpayer. So that's something to remember. And I want to thank Jonathan and our city manager for the job they're doing on that.
Thank you, sir. On to the discussion items. Agenda item 12.1, consideration of approval of additional work services agreement with Valleywide Recreation and Parks District. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm going to turn over the balance of this item to Robert Lennox, your Community Services Director. However, I just want to make a brief introduction that when we had our special meeting of the council and council had voted to bring on Valleywide, city staff assumed that, not assumed, it was stated that it was apples to apples. When we started going through contractual negotiation, there are some items that Valleywide determined to not be part of what they originally shared with council, knowing full well what staff had proposed and the items in our original staff proposal. So that is really what the item is. I did not receive the authority by the city council to go over the dollar amount that was provided that night, and Mr. Lennox has the balance of the presentation for you to discuss those items and to make a presentation. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, City Manager Johnson, Mayor, members of council. Just to take you back in time briefly, as the city manager mentioned, back in April 30th, the city council did hold a workshop to review some of the park and rec maintenance and operation options at their disposal. Consequently, we came back to City Council on May 7th, wherein the City Council directed staff to execute the agreement for a 3-year period. Fast forward a bit to July 1st, that was the start of that contract with Valleywide and also marked the transition of ownership of the Case San Acero Center. Just to clarify, this is not only for maintenance, but also for operation of the recreation programs at both of the city-owned facilities. As of July 30th, staff did receive the very first repair authorization request from Valleywide to address some routine and some deferred maintenance work that they experienced out in the parks. And since then, we've received numerous others. No doubt the repair items were definitely in need, some posing health and safety issues, some just basic routine maintenance items. Just to, again, refresh your memory, the chart you see before you is something that was presented in the past. The city's proposal column has been updated with the most recent figures that have been incorporated into the 14-15 adopted budget. Essentially, the constant expenditures are more accurate to reflect the real utility costs and staff overhead for folks that are on staff right now. And so the Valleywide proposal number is also there by comparison. And so some of the accepted maintenance tasks, these are just some sample pictures. Not all of these are Menifee parks, but to give you an idea, graffiti abatement, as disclosed by Valleywide, was not part of or would require an additional cost for them to do the abatement work. Sprinkler repair and replacement is an additional work item. Additional restroom cleaning beyond what was negotiated in the original contract. Repair of DG trails after storm events. reservation of picnic shelters, including reservation and cleaning of them beforehand, repair of site amenities, site furnishings, repair of turf. Those are all considered additional work according to Valley-wide proposal. And this is just a brief summary of those. A more elaborate listing of fees, rates for disciplines of work are included in your staff report and as an attachment to the additional work agreement. But these are abbreviated, some of which I just mentioned, so I won't run through them all. The recommendation, as listed in your staff report, and something added to, are as follows. Staff is merely asking City Council to consider an additional work agreement with Valley-wide to complete the maintenance and operation of city-owned parks for items that exceed the existing scope of work. Alternatively, the Commission, Park Recreation and Trails Commission, did meet on August 28th and reviewed the same additional work contract and recommended that City Council direct staff to bid out the additional work as needed per municipal finance rules, as either one contract or as various specific disciplines as needed. Additionally, staff is recommending council approve an allocation of $100,000 for necessary as needed and on-call additional work services. The $100,000 figure, in staff's opinion, is a conservative estimate of what those costs could be in the course of a year. There are certain unknowns in that figure. It could be higher depending on any catastrophic events that occur. Graffiti abatement is a function of how active some of the negative components of our community decide to rear their heads. Same with other vandalism items. Sprinkler repair is contingent upon how often sprinklers are vandalized or broken, either intentionally or by accident. So some of these are unknowns, but it is staff's opinion that $100,000 is a conservative, safe estimate for now. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Deputy Mayor?
Well, I'm certainly going to go along with staff's recommendation. Just a comment and then a couple of questions. If I, for example, I have people who take care of my property and there may be something that's broken, in which case they'll run over to Lowe's or get it fixed and they hand me a bill, which is in addition to whatever I have agreed to pay them, which I assume is okay. And so I pay them. They worked for me for 10 years, so I'm happy. So they must be doing a good job. When you say $100,000, it is my understanding that all you're doing is putting a pretty high cap on something we're never going to reach. Well, let me ask you, what was the overrun this month, let us say, for Valley-wide?
There was no overrun. We weren't authorized to exceed the contract amount, so we did not allow any billing for those. There's work in the parks that needs to be done. It's been delayed until we've reached this
Well,
date.
on a monthly basis, what would that have been for this month if you could have charged for it?
The services aren't billed on a equal monthly interval. They're basically billed on a as used services.
Right.
And so I'd have to pull some of whatever the latest billing is from Valley-wide to know, but they are aware of what their limits are under the base contract agreement.
Well, I have no concern about the way you've done it. That seems fine with me. $100,000, I would guess, is probably way and above anything they're going to charge. But was there a reason why you didn't just fold it into the contract, and then if at some point, if the contract is not sufficient to cover the costs, that they would bill us then, or you would bill them then?
I think it's in the best interest, at least from staff's perspective, to bring an expectation of overage to council earlier rather than later, so that there's full disclosure on the front end rather than later. We don't know what financial situation we may be in later. We don't know. I think getting the approval earlier is better. I'd rather not ask for forgiveness.
Well, I'm comfortable with that. Thank you, Mr. Lennox.
Mr. August and then Mr. Johnson.
Those were some of the same questions Mr. Edgerton asked. We're going to have a chance to, I'm also going to agree that we go ahead and approve it, but come next to February, July, we're going to be looking at the contract. We're going to review Valleyway's entire contract just for budget purposes. Is that kind of correct?
Yeah, every February, and I'm sure our interim finance director can also ring in if necessary. We look at all of our contracts. The structure of the current base contract is a single year with 2 additional single year renewals, so we can examine it then as well.
If we do at that time and during that process determine that there maybe some things, some costs were misrepresented, we'll have to wait and see what the numbers turn out to be, but at that particular time, the council could make a decision whether to bid out, to go out for a bid for those services where the overcharges occurred. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I think we have a fundamental difference as to what we're talking about up here. Staff came with a full proposal, an estimated cost associated with the full operations and maintenance of the city's parks on the west side. That information and that dollar figure was brought to us by Valleywide, proclaiming that they could do it for less than what the city could do it for. When the negotiations began, pieces of what the city had put together as our proposal were cut out by Valleywide. They did not want to offer those services after we had, in a sense, negotiated at the council level what the cost would be, and the associated differences between the two should have been apples to apples, and that was our question. What you're proposing to us tonight from that Valleywide had brought to us was an apples to apples comparison. That was asked. When we started negotiations, many items, as you'll see from the list of considerable additional work, were cut out of that proposal that staff was intending to do in the dollar amount that we provided. So I don't want this to seem like, why couldn't we just fold it into the dollar amount that they provided to us? That was the agreement. Those items would have been and should have been included in that dollar amount that they proposed. And when we started negotiation, they were pulled out. So that's why we're coming back. We didn't have the authority to roll those in. This is a dollar amount above and beyond the total amount of the contract that was stated by Valleywide they could do the work for, which was apples to apples and less than what the city did. I believe at the end of the day, and everything being equal, I still believe there's a savings or less amount of money going to Valleywide than to the city. But I want to be really clear, it was not an apples to apples comparison, and the dollar amount provided by Valleywide did not cover the entire scope of work the city and our staff diligently laid out for the council on the west side. I just wanted to make that absolutely clear. We are coming tonight to recommend the additional work. Otherwise, the Parks and Recs and Trails Committee said, hey, bid it all out, bid every single item out. Well, that takes additional staff time, energy, and effort. So unfortunately, as the city manager was a little handcuffed in negotiations, and I think this is the most equitable way to move forward, which is the additional $100,000.
Oh, go ahead. Anybody? No, that's fine.
You okay?
I think so. Yeah.
Mr. Furman?
Just to make it more simple, like it's, if you spot graffiti, they can fix it right away. Or if there's a broken sprinkler head, you have the okay to just go ahead and fix it. Is that what we're talking about?
If the council approves this contract, yes.
Okay, that's good. Thank
Mr.
you.
Johnson?
Which was originally intended to be in the original dollar figure. That's the point I'm trying to make. Yes, the additional work covers what they deem additional work, but staff had that in the original contract that was to be covered under that dollar figure that Valleywide agreed to and then did not through the negotiations. That's just my bone of contention with what happened.
Can you go to the next slide, please? So what's not up here as a staff recommendation is where I'm thinking. We are 2 months into this process. Why are we not telling Valleywide to eat the cost, suck it up, and deliver the service for the next 10 months? They did not present this, and they lowballed it. They misrepresented at that podium what that service was going to be. And here it is, $100,000 difference. I'm not voting yes on this tonight unless we hold them accountable. If you want to go out for a bid, I'm okay for going out for a bid, but in the meantime, my vote's going to hold them to accountable to the service that they promised at this podium in exchange for that service. I'm not going to vote to extend this contract and approve this money. Mr. Denver.
I'd like to hear Valley-Wide's side of this.
Not here.
Mr. Edgerton?
Well, if, as you suggest, Mr. Mayor, if they did misrepresent it, and that's a rather strong way to put it. I'm not certain they did misrepresent it. I don't know whether they did or not, but staff has recommended that we accept this proposal that staff has put together. And I would remind the council that the money, not that if we find that something has been misrepresented, then Mr. Mayor, I would go along with you. I mean, if something has been misrepresented, then Valley-Wide should pick it up, not the taxpayer. I'll go with you on that. But the primary reason that we went with Valley-Wide was that we believed that they were up and running, that they had had programs for a number of years, that they had personnel, that they had family, that they had children in these programs, they had mothers and fathers out there and soccer moms, and we were concerned it would be precipitous of us to jump in and take that program over by the city, and it would be better to move on more smoothly with Valley-Wide. As they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Valley-Wide was doing a great job. We were getting a lot of plaudits from the community. Having said that, in defense of the city manager and staff, I think probably all of us maybe threw a bit of a curveball, because the first blush was, should we have the city take over Parks and Rec? That's a big deal in a city. And our reaction was, yes, that would be wonderful. Let's do that. But as we dug deeper, it was clear that it was questionable whether the city, it wasn't a cost question. It was clear that there was a concern whether the city could move in and provide the kind of services that Valley-Wide was providing our community and those parents and those kids. And so we gave a 3-year contract with the understanding down the line it may be that it'll be in our interest to have the city take it over. But I think it would be misleading to think that it was a cost factor that made that determination.
Well, thank you, but you actually just made my point with your opening. You talk about experience, expertise, infrastructure, the ability to deliver staff. I don't see the difference in the contract language between a general landscaping maintenance and then additional maintenance. Graffiti removal, it should come with the program. And so I'm sorry, I disagree with you.
Which part?
Almost all of it. We relied upon Valley-Wide with a 4-to-1 vote to deliver this service, and now we're back here less than 2 months later asking for another $100,000. I can't support it. So if y'all want to make a motion, make the motion. Mr. Denver.
I think what we ought to do is, if you take $100,000 and you divide by 12, you come up with, what, $11,000, give or take. What we ought to do is vote $11,000 in to get through the month, and then what we ought to do is have Valley-Wide come and explain. How can we vote yes or no on something when we've heard one side of the story?
Well, we don't need to bring them in and negotiate it from the dais. That's not our role. All I'm suggesting is that, I mean, my goodness gracious, there's a lot of assessment revenue on the east side of town. They have a reserve. They have a healthy reserve. And I'm telling you, it's my opinion, and I know it's just my opinion, they can absorb this cost in a large, large way. And I'm sure they're probably doing this same thing with some of the development, the commercial development that they've done in the city, where they made promises to deliver a similar thing, and now they're going back with them, making promises that they can deliver the service, and maybe they are, maybe they're not. But for me, I just can't get behind this, guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
Mr. August.
I'll probably vote to approve the staff's recommendation on this, but when we keep talking about $100,000, and I get your point, Mr. Mayor, but there's no guarantee that it's going to be $1,000. But as we continue to get closer to February next year, I think we'll have a kind of a better idea. In my understanding, and I have had, I did get a call from Valleywide, and I asked that question, and I'm not as well versed in this as I probably should be, but I agree we should not negotiate this or from the dais. But cost of anomalies, unforeseen things, cars driving through baseball parks and tearing up the infield and things like that. And I will ask the staff, Mr. Lennox, is there a possibility that that could have been misinterpreted in any way? I mean, if something like, let's say a frost came and killed all the plants in the park, and was that kind of a contingency or event written into that contract? Because I think Valleywide's position is, well, of course, that wasn't written into the contract. We can't plan for things like that.
Okay, Mr. Lennox or Mr. Johnson, who's going to answer the question? You both have your lights on.
I'll defer to Robert. You can take that one, then I have some additional information.
Thank you. Going back to what City Manager Johnson said earlier, immediately following the direction provided by City Council at the May 7th meeting, we met with Valleywide, and utilizing the template we had already had out to bid for maintenance of those parks that outlined every type of maintenance service A through Z, graffiti abatement, turf repair replacement, irrigation repair, all of that was incorporated into that RFP. So the spec was already included, and the proposal presented by staff already included that as well. Every year, every department in this city has to submit an operating budget that includes every contingency. Certainly there are major disasters that may exceed it, but if it were that bad, we'd be looking to FEMA for reimbursement. I'm saying things that are within reason typically are included in a department's operating budget, and that's how we approached the original contract.
Mr. Edgerton?
Well, once again, I agree with Councilman Denver. I'm very uncomfortable about drawing conclusions about misrepresentation without the other party being here to speak to the matter. And in fact, I really don't think that when you discuss matters like that, that an open forum is really necessarily the best place to be when perhaps management and Valleywide should be continuing to negotiate about this. The $100,000 figure, if I understand it correctly, is probably way over what the difference of opinion is about what those added costs are going to be. It was my understanding that our costs this last month were about $2,500 extra. If that's the case, you're talking, well, let's add another couple of bucks and make it $35,000. That's way below $100,000. But you're talking about a huge program involving a lot of families, a lot of children, and you know, to talk about maybe the sky is falling for what could be $35,000 a year. If indeed they should be on the hook for it, then fine. I'll stand firm on that. But as far as tonight, I'm going to support the staff's recommendation. And Mr. Mayor, I would suggest we will have an opportunity to review this again when we look at the budget, and we will have had a bit of a track record. And I would agree with you at that time. If they cannot validate those costs as being outside what should have been the understood contract, then I would stand with you and say they will have to be held responsible.
Mr. Johnson and then Mr. Furman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is a bit uncomfortable. We have a couple different recommendations here. We have a recommendation from the Parks, Recs, and Trails Commission to go out to bid on every single item. We also have a request from staff for an allocation of $100,000 for the additional work. Since the additional work and the dollar amount exceeded the signature authority that I have based on the contract obligation you thrusted me with to get done for the dollar amount that Valleywide had offered, it's imperative that I come now and ask for more than I think I'm going to need. You don't want me coming back 3 and 4 more times and causing this issue to continue to erupt as the year goes by. So whereas you may have $2,500 for July, you may have $15,000 for August. We don't know. So we're doing an assumption based on the total amount of additional work not covered in the contract that we believed was in the contract, and then we're extrapolating those figures out. There is a panel, I think, Robert, one of these slides has the additional work that's not covered in the contract. So what we did was we took the best guess that we have based on what we had in our estimate, in our cost proposal, and what the additional work is based on Valleywide, and we came up with a dollar figure. Hopefully, that will run the whole year and we'll have a savings, but we just don't know. If I had come to you for $25,000, well, that's my signature authority. I could assign that.
Mr. Furman?
Actually, it seemed to me that a lot of this repair work is vandalism. And who eats the cost for the vandalism if you can't catch the perpetrator? And I think a lot of the expense is eaten up in repair of vandalism, and it's a sticky area. If you can't catch the perpetrator, it has to be repaired. And who fixes it? I think that's a big part of the discussion also.
Thank you. And Mr. Denver?
Sort of 2 questions. One is, what is the recommendation of the staff? Is it not to go ahead and do this $100,000, but you haven't really said whether to bid it out or whether to give it all to Valleywide or have it available for the city manager? Second question is there a way we could at some point hear the other side of this? This was pretty damning on Valleywide, and I don't think we should all, one of us at least wants to not approve this. Is there a penalty is this a problem if we don't approve it because we want to make a point, or do we have any recommendations here?
Mr. Johnson?
Yes, thank you. I think we do have a couple of recommendations. There's a couple of recommendations that staff is offering. If you want to talk about the easiest, most expedient way to do it, is to approve the $100,000 for additional costs not included in the contract. If you want to talk about going out and bidding everything out, we can do that. It'll delay the costs of the improvements or the health and safety risk issues that we have in the parks. So one body, the Parks, Recs, and Trails Commission, recommended that staff bid all that out. I feel a bit handcuffed as I was directed to sign an agreement with Valleywide, which we did for the dollar amount that was professed that it would cover, and these are additional items. So I'm coming back to the council saying we did our job. We went with a contract with Valleywide. These are additional items. I'm asking you to approve those so that we can move on and continue the work in the parks.
All right. Is there a motion?
I move approval of staff's recommendation.
Madam, okay, and I'll take a second. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a speaker, apparently. Do we have a speaker?
Actually,
it?
2 people have come up and asked if they can still speak. Do you wish to take speakers?
Yes. We have a motion and we have a second. I'll call the first speaker.
Thank you. Bill Zimmerman.
Thanks for your time. I'll be brief. I'm speaking as a taxpayer. You guys have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayer on things like this. There's a teachable moment here, and I think it has to do with going out to a competitive bid process on these things. It would tie up and make it so these kinds of loose ends don't happen like this. Put out a RFP, have a scope of services that are there, and have every bidder, if it's Valleywide or if it's the city, all proposing on the same things. It was frustrating to see the process. It seemed like it went off the rails a little bit over the last months, and there were meetings in people's homes and things like that. And so I just want to make sure that our council sees this now and realizes that we don't want to have this apples, oranges, or apples discussion, it should all be in writing. It should be a scope of services, and we should be able to look at numbers, and all of those line items are exactly the same no matter who's bidding. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Bill, excuse me, I wanted to get a clarification on what you just asked for. You're not, actually what you're saying is what we should have done is to have gone out to bid for this whole process in the beginning. Otherwise, I don't think you're saying going out for bid now, because you would either be going out again for the whole project, or if you're talking about the 100,000, the 100,000 is a cap. You might be talking about a bid for 35,000, and it might cost you that much just to go for the RFP. I think you're saying in the future, what the council should be doing is demanding bids every chance that it's feasible and appropriate.
Absolutely, and you may find that our recommendation to go out to bid on this additional 100,000 might have come from a discussion that we should have done this in the first place for the entire contract.
Good point. Agree with you.
Next speaker, please.
Casson Klein.
Good evening. From this side of the dais, that night, it was very clear. When they filled this room, they knew it was on the agenda that night. If they didn't know tonight, they should have known it was on the agenda tonight to come and speak before you. It was represented to you, my recollection, which is very vivid, that it was apples to apples. And there was quite a bit of back and forth that the council took, in my opinion, Mr. Lennox to task over. So, again, from this person on this side of the dais, it was crystal clear as to what was being represented. And in fact, I got up and cautioned the council because and spoke about a project that I have here in town that Valleywide is not accepting responsibility on a mitigation area and a park within a tract for your residents that Deputy Mayor Edgerton is in your district. So this comes as no surprise to me. And it should, in my opinion, with all due respect, it should come as no surprise to you guys. And frankly, I'm really surprised and concerned that you're talking about the details of, is it vandalism or those things. There is a fundamental problem here with what was represented to this council and these residents, and a contract that city manager was directed by the council to execute with these people. And now here they are again, coming back and retrading. I apologize for getting this in, but I am offended, and I don't even live in this city, but this is wrong. Thank you.
Mr. August?
Yeah, we can stay up there for, please. No, thank you. You stand up there and you tell us something. Valleywide stood up there. They answered Mr. Denver's question. Can't be any more simple. What's cheaper? And Valleywide said, we can do it for half the price. If they're going to sit up there and tell us something, what it's going to cost, and represent it in that fashion, you tell me how we can be responsible. You mean we shouldn't take his word for it just because you said we shouldn't take his word for it?
Well, no. However, there's been a question tonight of, should we negotiate from the dais?
No.
That's exactly what happened that night, Mr. August. It was negotiated from the dais. And in fact, there was hang on, let me finish if I may, please. There was a question about, are we sure that the contracts are apples to apples? And the city manager said, well, I don't know. I've asked for it over and over again and never been presented with it. So there are a lot of questions.
No, I agree with you. There are a lot of questions, but when Mr. Lennox and the staff sat down with him and they thought they had a good agreement, but they didn't, as I understand it, they didn't find out till later that Valleywide might have reneged on a few of the terms.
Well, my understanding was that the council was presented the contract from the gentleman that stood here. Hang on, if I may, please, sir. It was my understanding that the council was presented the contract, and so I'm operating on the assumption, and believe me, I'm full aware of what happens when I assume, okay, that that you folks looked at the documents, the contract that Valleywide presented to you, the contract or the proposal that Mr. Lennox gave to you in the staff report. Mr. Johnson said that he hadn't had a chance to see it. So I'm assuming that you looked at that before you voted and said, and that you.
Wait a minute. Okay, now hang on, guys.
Wait a minute.
Hang on, I'm going to end this debate. This is not a public hearing, gentlemen. You are a public commenter.
Can I make one
You made your
statement, Mr.
comment.
Mayor?
You have the last
I have
word.
last one, and I.
We're moving on.
If-
We're moving on.
Yeah, if the staff sits here and tell us that they think they're negotiating with Valleywide apples to apples, I have to accept the staff's word for that. If it turns out that Valleywide was not negotiating apples to apples, then that's where we are right now. We didn't anticipate that, we didn't expect it, and that's where we are now. If somebody, and I'm not saying they did, misrepresented a position, we have to take their word for it in the beginning. I mean, that's what I would do. And maybe we didn't find out until after the fact that maybe somebody did misrepresent it. So I don't get your point back there, but I'm finished.
Mr. Edgerton?
Yeah, just a clarification on that, because I think Kasem Klein and Bill Zimmerman bring up a point, and it is a very good one. I'm supporting staff's recommendation tonight, but money back quarterbacking, we can do things a lot better. Nevertheless, they're not just talking about that. They were referring to what we should be doing in the future in a bid process. When Valleywide came up and gave their figure, Dean Witter held up a card. He said, "This is my number." That is not the proper way to do business, is what Kasem Klein is saying. And I think anybody should understand that when you're doing a bid process, the bids come in, staff takes those numbers down, there is an evaluation, and you go with the lowest qualified bidder, not necessarily the lowest bidder, but you go with the lowest qualified bidder. Then staff presents that to the council, and the council evaluates those numbers that are given to them by staff, and then you either accept the staff's recommendation or you don't. The way it was done was not proper, and it isn't the way public agencies usually do business. So it shouldn't be a surprise to any of us that came back and hit us in the face. So in the future, we should be going through a proper bid process, and this kind of thing won't happen when you do that.
Next speaker, please.
Howard Tunget.
Thanks, council members. Howard Tunget. I live in the Hemet area, and if you recall, I stood here and told you this was going to happen. That night, May 7th. Mayor Mann was the only one that voted against this, and that was the correct call. I've heard a few things here tonight. One was talking about your RFP. Your staff has done a great job in this contract and writing it and holding Valleywide accountable for this contract with you. That RFP, after coming to your council, I've done a little research and into that RFP, and I see why some of you council members did not want that done, because on page 10 it talks about collusion and influence on votes of the governing body issuing that public contract. And during that May 7th meeting, there was mention of several of you council members meeting at your home with Mr. Minor, Gorman, and Dean Witter outside of public view. I heard here again tonight that one of you got a call from Valleywide. Again, I'm curious to why Valleywide's calling you directly. Was that from Mr. Minor, Wetter, Gorman, who, and why not to your city manager where it should have been? Also on page 14 of that same RFP, there requires signatures saying that you have not colluded with others in awarding this contract for yourself. And I'm pretty sure That's the reason you didn't have Valleywide sign that. One of the other things is you have more problems with Valleywide's contract than you realize here. One of the things that Valleywide is not charging you for is Mr. Witter's time himself. If you look at that, so he's giving you that as an in-kind service. That money that being paid Mr. Witter is coming out of my pocket in the Hemet and the San Jacinto area, and I'm not happy with that to support your programs over here. So again, your west side is totally outside of Valleywide's boundaries. They have no right to spend my money in your city, and that's what's happening here. And you got bigger problems here than just this 100,000. Valleywide doesn't do this themselves. It's a carryover and handover to Adami, their landscaper.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any additional speakers on this item?
No, sir.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor.
May
Huh?
may I interrupt, sir?
Yes.
I do understand there's a motion, but I want to be clear
As to
on
which one it
exactly.
is. Okay, very well.
Thank
Could are you going to restate it, or should I ask Mr. Edgerton to restate?
I understand he wants to recommend, or move staff's recommendation, but would that be recommendation one, consider additional work agreement with Valleywide Park and Recreation District to maintenance and operation of city-owned parks and programs that exceed the existing scope of work, and approve the allocation of $100,000 for necessary as needed and on-call additional work?
Right, that was the staff's recommendation, but it wasn't an allocation of 100,000. As the city manager said, he's making a conservative guesstimate about what it would be by the end of the year. And I would guesstimate we're probably talking more like 35,000, but nobody wants to stick their neck out. So the city manager wants to make sure he has plenty of latitude, and that was the reason that's in the motion.
It's my understanding that when this is approved, an allocation simply means the proper way to handle it in the budgetary process.
Right. In other words, that money, if it's demanded, the city manager has the option to spend it.
If it's been allocated, yes, sir.
But, you know, he has to assume that it's a valid request.
So the motion is for paragraph 1 and paragraph 3.
Yes, sir, that's my understanding.
Is that your second, Mr. August?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Denver?
I'm confused. It seems to me that, is there a second way of handling this? Or if Mr. Mann, if the council voted no on this, what's the choices that we have here? Does this activity just doesn't get done in our parks? Do we have another choice but to vote yes?
Mr. Johnson?
You always have another choice but to vote yes, but it creates an issue of RFPing and going out for bid. We don't have to do an RFP. We could do it on every single line item for the additional work, or we could simply go out and get bids in quotes and estimates on every single item that needs to be fixed. Not the most efficient way to spend our time, energy, and effort.
So you're really suggesting to us very strongly that we go yes on this?
Well, can I ask?
Staff's recommendation is 1 and 3.
Gentlemen, let's bring this to a close. We have a motion and we have a second. The motion is, hang on. The motion is for consider the additional work as presented by staff and approve the allocation of up to $100,000 for necessary as needed and on-call additional work services. That's the motion. Is there any additional discussion?
Just clarification from the city manager. Mr. Johnson, I think as we move down the line, you'll have a better feel as to whether or not this is the appropriate number or not, or whether or not you feel that Valleywide is conducting their contract in the manner in which you understood they should conduct it. This will perhaps buy us some time, which may need further consideration down the line. Am I understanding that?
Yes, and I think what it also allows us to do is track expenses. And so if we believe that we can get the work done for less than what it would cost Valleywide to do it, as you recall, Valleywide the charge is a pass-through. They're an organization which hires contractors, which Adame Landscape is one of them. And so there's a cost to manage that contract for them. Some of the items they've put as at cost to them, which is helpful to us because they have an agreement already or a contract with Valleywide for certain, or with Adame for certain services. But it will allow us to track the cost for certain items so that in the future, we may be able to go out to bid on those items and get it even cheaper.
Good. City Attorney?
Yes, I just want to note that the recommendation that says consider additional work agreement with Valleywide for the maintenance and operation will require an actual agreement. So if you're going to do this, it needs to say paragraph 1, paragraph 3, and authorize the city manager to sign the contract so long as it's approved by the city attorney.
Is that your modified motion?
That's my
Is that
modified
your modified
motion.
second?
Yeah.
I have one comment to make, because I agree with Mr. Lennox. I'm going to soften my position and say it a different way. Valleywide Park and Recreation's responsiveness to the specs of the proposal did not rise to the specs. And in public contracting, when you go out for bid and you take bids, whether they're sealed or not sealed, if they don't meet the specs of the bid, you don't select them. They don't even get a seat at the table. So I am not going to vote yes on this. You know my position. I think they should eat the cost. I too got a call at 4:45 today from Mr. Wetter. I didn't take it. This agenda's been out on the street since last Thursday. That negotiation should have happened a long time ago. Call for the question, please.
Councilmember Furman.
Aye.
Councilmember Denver.
No.
Deputy Mayor Edgerton.
Aye.
Councilmember August.
Aye.
Motion carries.
No. I would like to record my
I'm
vote,
sorry,
please.
I am so sorry. I actually,
No.
thank you.
City manager report?
Wait, city attorney.
I'm sorry, city attorney report?
All right, I just want to thank the city for giving me the opportunity to share in the adventures that is Menifee for almost 2 years. And I wanted to tell you that I really appreciate working with your exceptional staff. I mentioned that to the staff this morning, and I want to call to your attention that you are a city of nearly 100,000 people, and you are run tightly by a very small group of individuals who are all extraordinarily committed to the community, to their jobs, and to the whole process of local government. As a public law attorney, I value our American democratic institutions and the rule of law that we live by. Fair and honest implementation of laws enacted through the public legislative process is essential to government credibility. It is a privilege to be a guardian of that principle. Local control of the decisions that directly affect residents is the heart of a government of and by the people. And I have very much appreciated working with the city to strengthen and enforce its laws so that every resident is assured equal protection of the law as guaranteed by our Constitution. I wish Menifee well as it moves forward with new legal counsel, and I'm hopeful that my efforts here will lead to a renewed commitment to transparency and integrity among the leaders of the community in the months and years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Ms. Biggs, thank you so much as a colleague of mine and doing a lot of firsts in Menifee. We tackled CIP, we've tackled the general plan together, and I really appreciate your advice, your counsel, and your humor, especially your humor. I do have an update actually from Christy Lopez, an attorney at Alshire Winder, who is assisting us in our opportunity to publicize and televise our meetings here. Just a short description. There's some legal things, obviously, that we need to get over. First, we need to do prior to the channel being started, we first need to go and identify what that channel is. I think it's channel 3, and I think Temecula is already using it, so we may need some negotiation issues there. But aside from the additional cameras and the additional things that we're going to need to go live over television, we're going to need to do an RFP and seek a vendor that can do the video and editing services. We're going to need that provided for us. And also the airings of the council meetings, and if you choose so, planning commission meetings and PRTC meetings. We'll also need to establish some policies to govern the channel to consist with state and federal law, most notably the restrictions related to advertising and potential First Amendment issues that may arise. Many cities prohibit various forms of speech to avoid pitfalls such as political speech and religious speech. Further, though, the policy will need to include the record retention, and we're bringing on a new record retention program, which will integrate into that quite well, and a vendor, obviously, who's experienced in working with cities, and so that they have multiple samples of what we're doing. We can't, as you know, we do record, and we do post that on the web within 24 hours after the meeting. Something we could do in the near future is do that webcasting live. It would take us between $7,500 and $10,000 to actually push that out live via the internet. But as you know, some of our folks don't have TVs, and I think a goal of ours maybe in the future to be able to promote a lot of what the city's doing transportation-wise, CIP-wise, in the parks, and in other community events is to ensure that we get to push that message out of a building, growing community to the community through the television. So that's just a quick update on that. We should be coming back in about 30 days or so. We'll look at the transition between the attorney services and hope to push that up. We do have a little bit of an estimate. It'll cost again between $7,500 and $10,000 for a couple new cameras and such. But if we really want to do it well and get the licensing to go on TV, it's going to be probably about $50,000 in that range to start. So I just wanted to update council and some of the residents that were asking about that.
We had the money till we spent it on Valleywide.
Well, we do have a short Public Works update from Jonathan Smith, your city engineer. Jonathan, we'll have it for the balance of the item.
Thank you, City Manager. I'll keep it brief, focusing on the most recent work that Public Works is accomplishing right now, leaving time at the end of my presentation for any questions that you may have on other projects. This is a list of all the work that we're currently working on at this time. Most recently tonight, you approved additional budget for the Holland Road project. The Holland Road design project is moving along very quickly. The consultant is accomplishing even more tasks than what was scheduled for. So I'm looking forward to that getting underway very soon. Tonight, you also awarded a bid for the Quail Valley Area 9 resurfacing project. That'll get started very quickly here. That's our pavement management program. This here is a map that's inclusive of all of our commercial development, residential development, and CIP projects, which is available online to anyone in the community that's interested to see what's going on in the community. Should they have any questions, they're more than welcome to call me at any time, and I'll answer those questions. Just a brief snapshot of where we are with this year's encroachment permits compared to last year. We're at 204, 232 last year, 59 grading permits compared to 29 last year, 34 improvement plan reviews compared to 16 last year. This is some recent striping that happened just the other night on Newport Road, adjacent to Audie Murphy Park, providing parking and a safe bike lane along Newport Road. This is the striping that you may have all noticed here at Hahn and Newport, providing a right turn lane from Newport west onto northbound Hahn. As well as there was some additional striping on Hahn itself, adding a lane there to provide some better traffic circulation between the new developments going on there where Five Guys is going in and so forth. With that, that's my update.
Thank you very much. And I'm assuming we're going to get a Line A update soon.
Actually, I can pull up Line A real quick. I
Let's
put
do it.
something
Line
together
A,
if you want.
It's so exciting that it needs to have its own prime time, all right? It's so exciting. It's finally moving forward. So
Yes, it is.
let's do it a different way. On to, does that conclude your city manager report?
Yes, sir, thank you.
All right, council member future agenda requests? Hearing none, I was remiss in doing the report out of closed session. I apologize to all. The firm that was selected for the city attorney services was Rutan and Tucker, and the city attorney that will be for the city of Menifee is a gentleman by the name of Mr. Jeff Melching. Rutan and Tucker, Jeff Melching. So with that being said, we are adjourned.